Even black people themselves have got frustrated and have said that the LGBTQ movement is trying to associate their struggle with the black struggle.
Every single American, gay, straight, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, every single American deserves to be treated equally in the eyes of the law and in the eyes of our society. It's a pretty simple proposition.
Even black people themselves have got frustrated and have said that the LGBTQ movement is trying to associate their struggle with the black struggle.
You can't be pro-black or pan-African if you're not discussing the rights of women, children, and queer people on the continent.
Even black people themselves have got frustrated and have said that the LGBTQ movement is trying to associate their struggle with the black struggle.
It's Black History Month, y'all, and you know I'm rooting for everybody black. Shout out to the black women who hold it down. Shout out to the black men that show up. Shout out to the black LGBTQ folks for existing, especially the black trans women. Protect them at all costs.
Even black people themselves have got frustrated and have said that the LGBTQ movement is trying to associate their struggle with the black struggle.
I just saw a tweet that said homophobic black people treat gay people the way racist white people treat black people. And it really just made me levitate because of how true and how factual that is, just in my experience alone.
I want to start with the disclaimer that I'm not anti.
L stands for lesbian, woman likes woman. G stands for gay, man likes man. B stands for bisexual, person likes both man and woman. T stands for transgender, person of one gender turns into another gender. The first Q stands for questioning, the person is questioning their gender. The second Q stands for queer, anyone that isn't straight or the same gender as their birth gender. The I stands for intersexual, those who are in between transition. The P stands for pansexual, person likes the whole gender spectrum. The 2S stands for two-spirit. Two-spirit acts as a third gender for Native American people. The first A stands for androgynous. Androgynous people can't decide whether or not they are masculine or feminine and are therefore a mix. The last A stands for asexual. They aren't sexually attracted to anyone.
Community. My issue is that oftentimes when we have conversations about the black community writ large, especially in the political season, that conversation gets hijacked by, well, you're oppressed, but we're doubly oppressed because people are oppressing you and you're oppressing us. And instead of focusing on the true issues of the black community, like here in Washington, D.C., those conversations often get derailed.
Washington, D.C., schools are seeing their highest graduation rates in more than a decade. New results show almost 79% got their diplomas in the last school year. Our Rebecca Turco takes a closer look behind what's going on with this trend.
Ready? Cue the pomp and circumstance. More district high schoolers are getting their diploma. About 79% of the class of 2025 graduated. The state superintendent of education says that's an all-time high.
Our kids are engaged, they're excited, they're seeing a future and coming to school and graduating.
She credits a variety of factors, from increased dual enrollment to revamped options for career and technical education.
I think that we are very pleased with the progress that students are making, but very much aware of the fact that there's a ton of work yet to do.
You're going to understand why I'm speaking about Washington, D.C. in just a moment, but notice the stats here. They're celebrating 78% of kids in Washington, D.C. schools graduating from school. Now for the real stats.
Aussie data shows about 58% of high schoolers were chronically absent last school year. That means they missed at least 10% of school days. From K through 12, it's closer to 40% falling into that category. And state testing results released over the summer show around 62% of students across grade levels are not proficient in English language arts. That number rises to about 74% when it comes to math.
We, in a rush to try to improve scores, often focus intensely on a couple subjects, which actually research shows is not the best way even to improve outcomes in math and reading.
You can see the glaring contradiction in plain sight. 78% of kids are graduating and they're boasting of the fact that this is the highest that it's been in a long time. But you also see numbers like 74% of the kids in the school system not performing at grade level in math and 62% not performing grade level at language arts. And this is being run by the gentleman that you saw, the woman that is the superintendent of the schools, and the mayor of Washington, D.C. We remember her, right?
I guess in Washington, D.C., the all-time high was in 1992, where we had 482 murders. That's just almost beyond belief. Last year, we had 187. If you go back 10 years to 2014, we had 105. So you could say the murder rate almost doubled, or you could look at what we were at 220 and say it fell dramatically. But in any event, I think the number of murders in Washington, D.C. is an embarrassment. The amount of crime is embarrassment.
This is a hearing from last year, and we know what the issue is for many of these kids. They're growing up in homes without fathers, without structure, and the line of questioning is pretty straightforward. What are you doing to help these kids get some order and structure in their lives so that they perform better in school and stop getting in trouble?
I sometimes, when I'm back in my district, which is not Washington, D.C., do ride-alongs with local police, local sheriffs, local police, what have you. And I ask them what the causes of crime, and almost uniformly they talk about the breakdown in the family and how families are not as strong as they once were, is how they're not fathers in the family. And I think if you look at statistics, which are hard to find, on the background of people committing crimes, you frequently look at what I would describe as weak families and fatherless families. Nevertheless, 4 of you in your prepared statements and talked about what we're doing to reduce crime, not one of you mentioned the decline of the role in the decline of the role of the father in the family over the last, it's been just getting worse over the last 60 years. I'd like to ask you, are any of you doing anything to try to keep more fathers at home and being mentors for these kids? The vast majority of murders are committed by males. Are you doing anything along the line to get the fathers back in the home?
Congressman, let me answer that by saying and I know that I focused a lot on our law enforcement efforts, but we commit to and invest in a lot of prevention efforts as well, from incredible and effective funding of our public schools to our...
Yeah, I only got 5 minutes. We got to address the topic. What are we doing to get fathers in the home?
Well, sir, we take the position that we support families in whatever form they come in, and we make investments that the government is responsible for.
When you look at this in plain sight, it's pretty obvious what's happening here. There's an argument to get continued resources from the federal government, and they're simply asking, well, are you doing anything to help these kids get more face time with their fathers? And essentially the argument is these kids don't really need their fathers, that if you just give us the money, we can fix it. And the fix it, of course, is what you just saw in the numbers in the public school, which is a video from essentially a month ago. And then, of course, there are the other projects that this mayor, who is Alternative Lifestyles, is funding.
Muriel Bowser here. Yay! She came out, she has a schedule busier than God. That's a joke.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to be here, and I want to say congratulations to you, Dr. Woody. It only seems like yesterday where you visited my office to tell me about your dream and your childhood home.
She was the first person to let us come in.
And I was excited for you then, and I'm even more proud of you now to see that you are putting your dream into action. And you have put your finger on an issue and a challenge that we have in our growing city to make sure that we are building housing that's affordable, safe, and clean, and accommodating, and housing that will serve the needs of our LGBTQ community. So I'm very, very proud of you. This issue, of course, was brought to us recently, and I'm proud to say in our most recent budget that I included a $200,000 study that will help us evaluate what our LGBT senior housing needs are for the city moving forward. And that money becomes available on October the 1st. And we're going to make sure that our housing agencies are getting that study done. Philadelphia is one that we want to take a look at, and there's no reason why the District of Columbia can't also be in the forefront for having great, affordable housing that's safe and accommodating for our LGBT community.
It's obvious what's infuriating watching this coronation of a house dedicated to elder LGBTQ citizens by an LGBTQ mayor. I'm not saying that they don't deserve anything, but of all of the things going on in Washington, D.C., a mayor is focused on these kinds of things when young kids are graduating at an 80% clip, but at the same clip they're not reading or performing math at grade level? Is the focus not in the wrong place? I'm not saying they deserve nothing. What I'm saying is they need to get their own representation and get out the mud, because it's clear the people that are in that district, they need their mayor giving them something more than this. And of course, it's inevitable what happened with this community project.
When it opened last spring, Mayor Muriel Bowser called Mary's House for Older Adults in D.C. a model for the entire city. While it's not a city-managed facility, her administration loaned the owner of the home almost $1 million of your dollars to make a safe space for aging members of the LGBT community. Just a few months later, some residents are telling the News 4 I-Team they think that promise was an empty one. They spoke to Ted Oberg and our team about harassment allegations, police calls, and even a death at the home you helped pay for.
2, 3. On the day he moved into Mary's House for Older Adults, Wes Pinkney was ecstatic.
Opening day was beautiful.
The 71-year-old D.C. resident told the News 4 I-Team he'd worked with the founder of Mary's House, Dr. Imani Woody, for years to make her dream a reality, and he finally felt like he was home.
This is a place for the residents of Washington, D.C., LGBTQ plus same gender loving, to have a safe space.
Mary's House in Southeast D.C. was designed, according to its founder and their website, to be D.C.'s first affordable LGBTQ plus affirming communal living space for adults 60 and over.
That's how I felt. I clicked my heels 3 times.
But just weeks later, the man who says he clicked his heels like Dorothy on opening day felt like he was in the midst of that tornado instead of safely at home.
3 weeks later.
Serious?
Yeah. Because what I saw was there were straight people in the house. We got 9 straight people and 5 gay folks.
I don't have an issue with Mayor Bowser doing something for the LGBTQ community or even the Black LGBTQ community. But the issue is that they were expecting this project all to themselves, which is fine if we as Black people can then say, well, this is something that we're expecting all for ourselves. And this is a conversation that we're never allowed to have. Anytime we try and have a conversation about the issues of the Black community, it always gets hijacked.
And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. Author Scott Galloway released a new book, Notes of Being a Man, that has the nation talking. It addressed how we're losing what we know as a next generation of American men. He says some young males are locked up in their basements with artificial intelligence, far-right websites, gaming, and incapable of socially surviving in the real world, or even some are afraid to date women. That has also spurred additional conversations about what some call the media's attempt to emasculate Black men. We've seen some high-profile Black males in dresses, heels, and painted fingernails, but what does all of this mean? Is it the feminization of the Black man, or people jumping to conclusions? What happened to freedom of expression? We have a panel here to talk about it tonight. We have activist Derek Muhammad, Ian Haddock, and former NFL player Reggie Rusk.
You've seen how this conversation was set up. It's supposed to be a continuation of the conversation that Scott Galloway is having about young white masculinity, except this time it's supposed to be specifically about young Black masculinity in an age of feminism, boss girls, and digital media. Watch how long it takes to go from talk of positive masculinity to you know where.
NFL player Reggie Rusk. Now, guys, we want to lay the groundwork. We're not talking about sexuality or what someone feels. We're talking about the look and presentation. So, Derek, you and I had this conversation once before about Scott Galloway's book, saying that a lot of, especially some single mothers, don't have that male role model to guide their young sons. And of course, you guys offer a program for that. But what we see here in this country, in some instances, do we see the feminization or emasculating of the Black male?
I think we see a little bit of and both. Sometimes the feminization comes from being raised primarily by women and not having a male role model in the home or in the community. And as black men, I would say that that is our fault. There's also emasculation. So I do believe that black manhood in America has always been threatened and continues to be threatened. The reason that black manhood in America is threatened, it is because it is considered threatening. I mean, how many times as a black man have you walked into a room and instantly you feel the energy change because you're seen as a threat? You could be dressed in a suit and tie just like yourself and myself, Isaiah. It doesn't matter. So black men in this country feel that we have to code switch. We feel that we have to smile more. We feel like we have to wear, you know, spectacles, even if they're not prescribed, because it gives us a softer, non-threatening look. So I believe that the biggest threat to black manhood in America is the negative stereotypes that are put out in the public about us, which causes people to judge us and misjudge us before they even meet us. So I do believe that, yes, there is an emasculation agenda, and I also do believe that because our presence is not as strong as it could be or it should be, that some of our young boys are tending to take on more feminine qualities instead of masculine qualities.
All right, Ian, let's hear from you. Your thoughts about this topic.
Now, that's a very promising start to this conversation. Although he does put the onus on black men, he's really talking about a subset of black men. And even in those cases, many of those black men would like to be more involved fathers, and there are just keep away games. But that's the beginning of the conversation. We're 2 minutes in. Now watch how quickly it turns.
Yeah, I think I agree a lot with what Brother Muhammad said, but I also think that we're expanding the construct of what masculinity looks like in terms of expression. I think that word is expanding. I think, you know, younger generations are now seeing themselves as like, those things don't matter. How I present myself doesn't matter. I was raised in a house with 2 older brothers that were extremely masculine, dressed extremely masculine, but like it just wasn't my flair. I wanted to experience wearing a kilt. I wanted to experience wearing different types of clothing. And so I think for me and my expression, it's more about like, I actually don't care about this binary code of what masculinity looks like.
What's so frustrating about this conversation is that it essentially begins basically as a conversation we've been having in this space for however long, decade or so. And then it sharply turns because I don't understand. Are 1/3 of the people in the black community LGBTQLIA plus? Yes or no? If not, then why is 1/3 of the panel, and more specifically the second person speaking, talking about wearing kilts and presenting differently? And he has to be an LGBTQLIA plus activist instead of just having 3 straight guys that are trying to deal with all of the things that more people are dealing with than that small segment of the black community. People are dealing with child support. They're dealing with child estrangement. They're dealing with getting employment coming out of penal facilities. They're coming out of education, not having the kind of education that makes them competitive. You have children that are dealing with not getting fed properly. Even women that are dealing with the stress of trying to make families go in very difficult situations. And the second man speaking is talking about alternative lifestyles is infuriating, because why is it even in the conversation to begin with? We're talking about families here. We're talking about black men creating their families going forward. And the conversation immediately gets hijacked about, well, the new way of presenting masculinity is this way, and I'm going to make sure that it's included in this conversation about the black community, and it throws the conversation completely off the rails.
And Reggie, are some black men, or are black men in general, stuck in a box where they have to do what's expected of them from society, from black community?
Well, I really believe that young men today, young black men especially today, don't subscribe to that thought process anymore.
All right, and Ian, do you feel like we're under attack when it comes to black men?
I I think we definitely are under attack. I think the difference in my perspective is that my generation was not only not taught those things, even though I subscribe to them, they were not taught those things. I was taught that I was soft because I didn't play football. I was taught that I was soft because I was a geek. I was taught that I was soft. And so I was immediately ostracized and had to find my way in other ways. And so I don't particularly subscribe to the idea that that is not the culture of my generation, that we have to be those things to be a strong black man. And I actually think that you are right, that the ideals I have about my expression are really a rebellion to what people said was okay for my existence.
But did you let other folks guide you down that path because you felt like I'm going to be talked about, I'm going to be ostracized if I don't play football? So did that just make you lean that direction because you're trying to rebel?
Well, I would offer that I became a strong black man despite how I present. Right? So all the things that you said was a strong black man, other than the fact that I have to wear a certain look, I am all of those things, right? And I became all of those things, not in spite of how I dress, but also because how I present.
Even black people themselves have got frustrated and have said that the LGBTQ movement is trying to associate their struggle with the black struggle, right? So they're trying to say, well, you're trying to oppress us like the way the black people oppress. With all due respect, just from an observatory point of view, the oppression that black people went through is nowhere compared to what the LGBT.
And it will never be.
Okay, why? Because the LGBT, if anything, right, this is how you know the system is so biased. They've done more for the LGBTQ rights than they've done for black rights or any other person's rights. But what is their struggle though? Their struggle is, I want to dress like a girl, I want to sleep with the same sex. What kind of struggle is that?
I want to give a shout out to this sister, and yes, her mindset as an ally in this conversation makes her a sister, at least in this particular case, because she's saying the quiet part out loud. If people in the LGBTQLIA plus community want to get something from the political process, then go deal with the political machine as that group. But don't hijack conversations about black people and say, well, what about black gay people? Because first of all, we're not going to have any more black people if everyone is gay unless we're using alternative lifestyles or alternative methods to create children. If we're having any kind of traditional families, then we need to have a conversation about how we're going to do that, which we've done. Civil rights was about how black people are going to move forward in modern America. But when it's time to have conversations about what the black community is going to get, and it turns into, well, as black gay people, we need something especially for us, then that just hijacks the conversation. It hijacks the political process. And to be honest with you, if the Democratic Party or one party in particular is going to say, well, we're going to cater to the subset of black people, and you're not going to give anything to black people as a group, then I will just sit on the couch like I did the last election. And that's what you're seeing with more and more black men in this space is that, hey, listen, if you're going to let the LGBTQLIA plus group hijack the black conversation, the black political demands, then that's your base. You get them to come to the polls and vote for you, and you'll get that 15% of the black community or however much it is, and the other 85% of the black community can sit on the couch or we can go vote for something else. But it's not fair to the black community with all the ills that you heard about in Washington, D.C., to have a mayor, to have a conversation that is tailored to gay black people, because that's not the black community. But time and time and time again, the black community cannot say, we need this for black people only. We can't say that. But when we try to do that, it's what about gay black people? What about LGBTQLIA plus black people? And then they get something, and you have 78% of people in the DC area graduating, but 75% of those people not reading or performing at grade level. And who loses? Black folks. But at least the gay people are getting something out of it, but only at the expense of the rest of the black community. And me, frankly, I'm tired of seeing it. If you're gay, run as a gay person and get your stuff as a gay person and leave the black straight community to get what we're trying to get as black straight folks. But don't hijack our conversation and don't hijack our political process. And if you do, you're on your own. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. I'll catch you next video. Take care, guys.